I am Jeremy Covert with Apple Software. I'm an account executive here. I've been here for a few years. We also have Cindy Town with Foursquare with us as well. So if there is any questions that do get asked that I can't answer, if she wants to chime in at any time, she has the floor as well. So um, we'll probably just start off with a little bit of slides to go through, and then we'll actually get into the software a little bit onto some of the topics that we're talking about today. Just to make sure everyone's there, we'll shoot out a question in the beginning to see what district you were part of and which one referred you. Give it a few more seconds, a couple more responses. Alrighty. Thank you. Looks like we have the Heartland District coming in strong right now, over 50%. Alrighty, so topics that we're going to go over today. We're going to cover a better, stronger, simpler chart of accounts. Part of the big thing when you need to get reporting is having a good basis for that. We're going to go over budgets for funds, ministries, missions, and everything under the sun. You should be budgeting a lot. It's going to help you be more accountable, more transparent, stick to your goals. Reporting, increasing accountability, transparency, better decision making, giving those reports to the correct people so they can review them as well. And then extra tools to save your bookkeeper's time, something that every bookkeeper wants more of. And then for any churches that might have campuses, multi-site, or church plants, some of the tools that we can help with that as well. So first off, chart of accounts. Chart of accounts is the basis for reporting. A lot of the reason why we do accounting is to get better reporting. Your chart of accounts is going to be the stronghold for that. So we advocate building a good chart of accounts. Everyone's going to have a very unique chart of accounts depending on what your needs are. If you have a preschool attached, if you have a daycare, if you're multi-site, if you're not. So each person should be customizing the chart of accounts to what they need. So own it, champion it, make it make sense. You shouldn't be. Sometimes we see people who come over with chart of accounts and it's something that's been passed down, from 20 years ago, and there's been a lot of change, and they just keep on adding on accounts where at some point you're going to want to clean it up and allow for more transparency, cleaner reporting. Just because you have more accounts doesn't mean you're tracking things better. So you can simplify it and you can make it better and stronger. And then also the way certain systems work, depending on what software you're using, there might actually be a lot of additional accounts in there or structure that makes your chart of accounts way too long, too many pages you have to go through when you're budgeting or reconciling and other things as well. So some of the things we see, overcomplicated structure is probably the most common one we see, but every once in a while we'll see oversimplified. It should be somewhere in between. Also, something that we see a lot of is too many funds. It's good. I guess it's better to be safe rather than sorry, but a lot of the time you can clean up a lot of the funds you're tracking and simplify things. Rather than having, for example, in our system, rather than having a fund for every missions trip, you could just have a missions fund, and then you could track the individual missions trips by something we call tags. Also, something we see is assets and liabilities being set up as funds, because maybe you're not in a true fund accounting software where it can be actually rather hard to track your fund balances. And so we see that, and there's a lot of complexities and things that come in the line when you're using that kind of structure. You're going to get caught up on your reporting and things you want to do, especially when you're trying to look at your balance sheet and see where your money's at. Another common thing we see people that don't have true fund accounting software is we'll see a bank account per fund because that's the only way you're tracking your fund balances, which is better than nothing at that point. But obviously, there's a lot of extra work that comes with those extra bank accounts to track those funds. That's something that's common when you look at some of the more for-profit softwares like Xero or QuickBooks. It's hard to track those things, so you have to do some workarounds. Nice thing about Aplos is if you come over to us, you're going to be cleaning up a lot of your chart of accounts and your structure. So you don't have to have, for example, one I like to use is office supplies. With Aplos, you only need one office supplies expense account because you have the ability to put a fund or a tag on the transaction for that office supplies expense account, which is going to categorize it, rather than having an office supplies expense account for each campus or for each ministry or for each department. You can just have one, and then you can simplify it by categorizing it with the fund or tag you put on it. Also, something that we see is sometimes people do it to save money, but managing multiple entities on one chart of accounts. First off, the big thing is if they have different EIN numbers, that's a no-no because if you ever do get audited and you have to provide those reports, if they have different EINs, you need a different set of books for them. Second reason is it can get complicated and things can get transactions can get crossed between the different entities, and then you're in a bigger mess and you end up having to bring in someone to audit your books and clean things up. So we have solutions for that to help you out as well. And then also using a non-fund accounting software, we went over a little bit already, but you have to do workarounds and have the correct things in place if you aren't using a fund accounting software that just kind of overcomplicate things. So just to give a good idea, I would like to do this each time I talk with someone who is new to fund accounting or just kind of the way we track things inside of Aplos. You have general accounting versus fund accounting. General accounting, everything's going in and out of the same fund. You have retained earnings at the end of the year. Where fund accounting, people are designated giving to a certain missions project or missionary or ministry, and you have to track and be responsible for that money to spend it for the purpose it was given. Of any of you run a nonprofit on the side or have a ministry that's related and you file a 990 or things like that, you'll know when you report to the government, you have to show, hey, this is how we spent the money for these funds or these grants or these facilities that was designated. So with Aplos, it's very easy to track those restricted versus unrestricted funds. So here's a couple examples of just chart of accounts. You might have a basic, which is this could be that oversimplified where it's just office supplies. Maybe I'm not getting enough information in there. Maybe this is great for a smaller church that doesn't need to get very granular. But then this is overcomplicated where you are tracking every individual item, or again, like the example I gave earlier, you could have an office supplies expense account for each ministry or department. Somewhere kind of in the middle where you're tracking the important things, but you're not overcomplicating it, sub accounts that are going to roll up into the parent account and make things much more user friendly and easier. So in Aplos, we have chart of accounts and then we have tags. So chart of accounts is you're going to build a lot of functionality in there, and then you're going to have tags to build more categorization and more reporting and more budgeting. Things that tags are great for: ministries, departments, mission trips, missionaries, campuses, events, camps, the list goes on. Tags are very similar to what a class is in QuickBooks. They track income and expense. So one thing I always like to go through is the difference in what you're looking to do with that tag or that fund. There's a distinction between fund and tag. A fund's going to carry a balance, a running balance. You can pull a balance sheet by a fund. A tag, you can only pull an income statement for. So They will be used. They will both be used together, but then you have the ability to kind of further your reporting and go down multiple layers of dimensions and comparing your reports with your tags and your funds and your budgets. Something that we do for Foursquare is called FMCR tags. It makes it required that each time you do a transaction, you're putting it to the FMCR report, to what category it belongs to. And so then that makes that monthly reporting so much easier with Foursquare. So let's hop into the software a little bit. Go back. Alrighty. Into the software, we'll give a poll question right now. See where everyone's comfort level is with their bookkeeping. Give it a few more seconds, still waiting on a few votes. Alrighty, gonna close up the voting. Looks like the majority of people are in that middle range. You know enough to get by, and you have a decent understanding of bookkeeping. You might not be at the CPA level, the 8 to 10, but you're doing your best. And the great thing about Aplos is we built it with the non-accountant in mind. We understand most people doing the books at churches are not CPAs, so we're here to help. Aplos means simple in Greek if you don't know that. It's kind of a cool little thing. We try to make everything very user-friendly and intuitive, and you'll see it as I go through the software. So first thing we'll do is hop over into the chart of accounts, just to give a good idea of the way my chart of accounts looks. This is a demo account, so it's something that does get changed pretty often. So you might see a couple inconsistencies here or there, but you have the ability to add a fund, color code it, and drop it into your equity and fund balance section. So from here, you have the ability to group them out. It's very user friendly. So like if this fund didn't belong in this group, I could drag it to a different group. And you can customize it as you need be. It's your chart of accounts, make it yours, make it fit for your church and what you need to do. Depending on your structure, a lot of the things we like to do when we bring you on board the Aplos is talk about what reports you need. For your campus, do you need to have a balance sheet or do you just need an income statement? And we will help when you come to Aplos set up your chart of accounts to optimize for the reporting you are looking for. Asset and liability section, ability to make sub accounts, uses accounts receivable, liabilities, and then I have my income and expense accounts. So with my income and expense account, something that is nice with Aplos is you have the ability to default that income or expense account to a specific fund. So if I have a coffee shop and all of our proceeds from the coffee shop go to our missions fund, I can automatically have it default to the missions fund. Hop into tags. So tags. First thing you're going to have as a Foursquare church is in your custom category, you're going to have your FMCR tags. So I have my different categories in here. I always have this on single tag mode and required, so that way I don't forget to tag any of my transactions to the appropriate FMCR category. It's required that each time I do a transaction, I tag it. But then I have 3 other customizable layers. So with that, I have children's tag is one of the categories I have. I have a preschool or nursery attached to the church, and I want to track different things for that. I can have my tags for that. It's a category. It doesn't have to be. A lot of churches don't have that. So there's also other categories. You have the ability to rename it. So if I didn't want to have missions as one of my categories, I could come here and rename this category to be something else as well. So I have my missions, I have my groups that I created, and then my parent tags and then sub tags. So these will all roll up into each other. Gives me a lot of reporting capabilities, um, different kind of structures and things you can do here as well. A lot of the time, what we see churches do that are multi-site, the majority of them will end up tracking their different campuses by tag. And so each time they do a transaction, they tag whether it belongs to this campus or that campus. And then again, some structures we see is people want to track ministries per campus. And so what they'll do is they'll list the campus and then the ministries underneath them has their parent tags, and they'll break it out further if they need to track something like men's breakfast or women's retreat or whatnot. So a lot of functionality with the tagging. Hop over to the budgeting. So here in Aplos, you have the ability to create multiple budgets. Budgeting is huge. Obviously, if you're a big church, you know how important it is to create the budget, stay on track with that budget, have multiple people look at the budget, and that way you increase accountability and transparency. And one thing I know a lot of people who go to these larger churches like to see is accountability. They like to see, hey, I want to know if I'm sending my money here, it's going here. So, the contribution statements will be quick, or some larger churches, you'll see them, they'll post different financials online just to kind of increase that view of accountability and transparency. So here you have the ability to create your multiple budgets. So I'm creating my budget, say, for 2020. I can create that budget, do a monthly breakdown. I can show last year's if I want. I can filter in this year's actuals, 3-year budget, and then I can look at my overall budget here, or I can filter it down and budget by fund. In Aplos, your budget by fund will roll up into your overall budget. If I want to budget just for that account, I can click into just that account and say, hey, this is, for your business income account. Break it out between, what funds are expected to come through that for that time range. So there's a lot you can do here with adding your budgets in. We always recommend it's reviewed by the time it's being put in. So this is kind of like your set number. If you need to go back and change it because maybe you got more budgeted numbers, maybe Easter was bigger than expected and you got a larger budget for the remainder of the year, or you want to do more missions trips, you can go back in and update the budget. We're always going to have an audit trail. So if anything ever does happen, you'll have that record that, hey, they updated the budget on this date. So you have the budget by fund, but then you also have the budget by tag. So I'm creating my budget by tag for 2020 for, say, I want to do it for a conference I have or the women's ministry. Now that tag gets their entirely own budget. So they get all the same income and expense line items that they have the ability to budget for. And they have the ability to show monthly breakdown and last year's budget. This is a standalone budget. This is for managerial tools. So this does not roll up into your overall budget for a couple reasons. First one is we don't want people to double count their budgets. You can imagine if you have a missions fund and you budget for that missions fund, and then you budget for each individual mission trip and missionary that are pulling from that missions fund, and they roll up into each other, then you're going to double count your budget. So that's one reason why we break it out. And then the other reason is we can give custom read-only access to a tag or a budget or a fund. And so that way, my ministry heads, rather than me having to provide these reports to them, I have the ability to give them login access so they can log in, pull the report, see where they're at with their budget in real time. They can make better decisions and they don't have to bug you, and it just makes it a lot easier on the bookkeeper and the person handling the sending of the reports. Ask a question right now. Let's go ahead and see what your current accounting solution is. Alrighty, everyone got in their answers pretty quick. Go ahead and close this poll out. I'll share some of the results so you can see them. Alrighty, pop it back up and let's go ahead and hop into some of the most important reports that you're going to be pulling. So obviously, kind of the most important one, especially if you're using QuickBooks, something you can't pull in QuickBooks is the balance sheet by fund. That's something, that a big reason why we actually started as a company is because of the inefficiencies in some of these other accounting softwares to pull fund accounting reports. And the ones that could, you're paying thousands of dollars a month for. So we saw the need among the market. Our CEO is a former executive pastor. He's also a CPA, but he was spending many hours doing workarounds, getting the reports he needed for his board members. And so we actually started out of the need that there was in the market. So hop into a balance sheet by fund. So one of your essential financial reports here, you can filter in your funds. Take off my allocate fund. And here I have my balance sheet by fund. So balance sheet, my funds are broken out in columns. You can see this, and then I can filter in things like my total column. That way I can see the total within those asset and liability accounts. So I can see, hey, this 450,000, this account is broken out between these funds and so on down the line. All reports in Aplos have full drill down capability as well. So if you're looking at this number and like, hey, that doesn't look right, maybe I forgot to put something in, I can click into this number. It's going to take me to a transaction list for that account. And if any of those look wrong, you can click into the individual transaction as well. Hop back into here. Another one, the income statement by fund. Oops, what's going on here? Go to the income statement by fund. So here, I'm going to filter in last year because there's a little more data in there. Again, I can filter in my funds as columns. If I don't want to see them all side by side, I don't have to. And again, I can filter in things like sub-accounts, zero balances, totals. I can look at my income statement across my funds, look at them very quickly, see the net figures and the difference between them. If anything's in a negative, I could pick that up very quickly. Hop into another essential report. So as well with those balance sheets and income statements, something I guess I should show real quick is if you don't want to look at them comparative, I can show the funds as pages, which is going to give me a balance sheet or an income statement for each fund. So if I just wanted to look at the general funds balance sheet, I could do that. If I just wanted to look at one of the other ones, I could do that. So there's that option as well. When I do give restricted access to a fund, they get to see the reports that are associated with that fund. So they would only get, say, the balance sheet for the ministry fund if I gave them access to that fund. Same kind of thing with tags. If I gave them access just to a specific tag like women or men's ministry, they could only see the reports that are associated with that tag. So it's great because it gives you multiple eyes on these different areas of the church where the bookkeeper and maybe the CFO doesn't have the sole responsibility. They have other eyes checking their work and making sure they didn't miss transactions or totals or a zero or commas off. So you're always going to have the ability to look at that and check into that and It's a good control to have in place, as well as add that usability to make it much easier for them to access the reports when they need to as well. Another essential report is going to go into the budget to actual report as well as the budget to fund. So I can pull the budget to actual for the overall church. I can look at this and say, hey, let's filter in things like my budget percentage, my annual budget. If I need to do comparative budgets over time periods, I can do that as well. This month versus last year. Look at those difference in numbers. And then I can also pull the budget by fund. Let's hop into some of the tag reports. But first, let's do a question and see what your single biggest struggle is with your current accounting software. Alrighty, waiting on a couple more answers. Ready, gonna go ahead and close out this poll. Show the results. It's pretty even across the board. Would imagine maybe some of the others. If there's anything you want to type in, or I'm going to try to save some time for some Q&A at the end as well. So if you want to put those answers in there and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, how can you help me, that kind of thing. Would love to chat further about that as well. And I'm going to ask one more question just to kind of gauge how many of you may be multi-site or not. Waiting on a couple more answers. Alrighty, go ahead and close out this poll. Looks like 25% of you are multi-site, but the campuses you work with are sovereign. So I'm actually going to go over something at the end of this, a little bit closer to the end, that shows kind of an option for you, and if it's something that your church might be interested in, definitely something we can talk further about. But let's hop into tags a little bit further. So hop into tags. Here we have a lot more reporting, a lot more functionality, and some of the things we can do as well. One of the big ones is, again, the comparative income statement by tags, like by funds, except it's getting more granular. So I'm going to filter in last year, get some data in here. Filter in my mission trips that I want to compare across each other. siphon out a couple of the missionaries that I'm tracking and apply. So with all of the reports, you have the ability to filter them down or add filters or take things off. And then from there, you have the ability to save the report, share it. You can always download to Excel if there's further manipulation you want to do. But for example, this is a comparative income statement for those mission trips that I pulled. And I can very quickly see, hey, this water wells initiative that we have, this isn't a negative. The Kenya Coffee Fields trip I have is in a negative. So I can very quickly drill down and make much quicker decisions rather than having to put different layers of things trying to track this, or maybe in the other systems you might have multiple chart of accounts that you have to pull a segment for your reporting to compare the income versus the expense and see those numbers, where this is going to make it very user friendly with the use of tags. So you have the comparative income statement. Another useful one is the ability to go into things like tag statements. Give you an idea of the way a tag statement works. I could pull tags has my rows. So here you have the comparative tag statement by fund. This report's nice because it gives you dimensional reporting with your tags versus your funds. So here I'm going to filter in last year again. Filter in my missions trips. I'm going to filter them all in this time. All the different mission tags. Then I can filter in my funds as well. So I'm say, hey, I want to look at how these trips are pulling from these three different funds. I'm gonna hit apply. So it puts my funds as the columns and then my tags as the rows. And I can see how they're pulling from these balances. I can also filter in things like subtotal by my tag groups. So I want to look at the different regions I'm tracking for my mission trip, Africa versus South America. Filter in things like zero balances, subtags. And so I can look at, these different categories, the things that roll up to. I can look at, hey, how's Jack looking? That's in Rio de Janeiro versus these different missionaries. So there's a lot of tracking and things you can do in tracking income and expense. Also, something you have the ability to do with Aplos is if you do use this for our donation pages, you can create donation pages that are specific to missionaries, and you can very easily track those giving for that missionary. There's other softwares that do it as well. One that comes to mind is DonorElf. And we actually integrate with DonorElf to give a little more reporting on some of the side that allows the missionary to engage. But as well with this, I could give Jack Long or John Doe or Jennifer Smith, I could give them custom report manager access to their tag. So they can log in, look who's given to them, look at what income and expenses they've incurred, and that way, again, you don't have to stay on top of emailing out those reports, and then you have that extra check and balance that's kind of saying, hey, I don't think this expense was right, or so on and so forth. So a lot you can do with the tag statements. Some other cool things you can do is you can do tag statement budgets. So I can look at my budgets across my tag statements very quickly. So here I can go actual to budget for those tags. I don't actually have any budgeted numbers in these tags, but if I did, it would show actual budget difference. I can filter in things like budget percentage and annual budget. And so again, you're getting these reports to make better decisions. These help for your ministry directors, department heads, people going on these mission trips and trying to decide which ones you want to back for maybe next year. So they're going to give you a lot more usability to make decisions. Have you ever become a multi-site church where the different campuses are not sovereign and you're tracking them within one software? Then you have the ability to monitor the financials of those churches very easily with your funds or tags as well. So let's hop into some of the tools that can help automate what you do as a bookkeeper. One of those is recurring transactions. I'm going to ask a question before we hop into here. So just one quick question. Do you plant churches out of your church? I would imagine those 25% that have the sovereign churches are probably the ones that are planting the churches out of them, but you still might be raising up some of your pastors to go on and plant, and might help them grow and start their own church. So right now I'm looking at the same number we looked at for the other, so 25% and 75%. So 25% are yes, so that would kind of be in line with the previous question. Wait for a couple more answers. Alrighty, go ahead and close it down. Great. Alrighty. So into some of the tools that are going to make your life a little bit easier as a bookkeeper. So one of the things you have the ability to with the Applos Advanced Accounting, and a lot of what I'm going through today requires the Advanced Accounting upgrade, which allows you to have multiple budgets, gives you the ability to create custom report managers, which is those ministry heads or department heads or missions heads, and give them access to the appropriate tags or funds or accounts. It gives you fixed asset tracking, allocations, recurring transactions, some more reporting. So if anyone's in this webinar, you you might have gotten into it a little bit too deep, and you're like, hey, I'm not actually able to use that yet. You always have the ability to upgrade if you need to. So happy to talk with you about that. But this is definitely focused on some of the larger churches that want to automate some of their stuff and increase accountability, transparency, and help enable better decision making. So here you have the ability to create recurring transactions. Recurring transactions are automatically going to post to your general ledger based on the time period you give it. So that will automatically post for you. If it's something that you need to change the amount for, like a utility bill, you could set up a recurring payable, and then it will drop into the accounts payable module, and you'll just need to go in there and change out the amounts. Or if your church has to deal with like tuition for a school or rent payments, you can set up your recurring receivables as well. So that will automate your transactions. Also, something else we have is fixed asset tracking. So what this does is it allows me to load my fixed assets into the software. I can create the fixed asset, give it a depreciation schedule, choose the if there's any previous depreciation on it, give it an asset ID. After I set up my fixed assets in the software, it's going to automatically start doing my depreciation expense for me. So when I come back into here, I go to the depreciation schedule. It's now doing my monthly depreciation expense for me. So I can post all those depreciated transactions and have a real-time value of what my asset is. This is obviously great for if you're looking at bank loans. They're going to want to see things like this before they loan you money, and then also insurance as well. They need to know the worth of something. You have this real-time schedule that's updating monthly after you get the information in there. So that's automated after the fixed assets are loaded in. And then we also have something called allocations. So if you're doing a lot of income and expense splits by your funds or your tags, maybe there are a lot of tricky splits. Maybe you're splitting, you know, utility expense by square footage, or payroll expense by ministries or mission trips or your different funds. You have the ability to set up cost drivers and use this allocations module. So here I can create a cost driver, and we can say, hey, we're going to set this up rather than doing the split each time in the register or journal entry. We're going to save time, set up the split between these funds. It's probably not the best example. Missions or ministry. And so I can set up a split between these funds and say, hey, we're going to do this. Rather than doing this each time, we can do that. This is a little bit easier example, but if you start getting into things like if you're splitting by number of attendees to small groups or square footage, or things that are kind of a pain to split each time in the register, what you can do is you create the cost driver, save it, and then when I'm doing a transaction, rather than splitting it here each time, like I would have to, which you can do if you want, I would actually just assign it to an allocate fund or an allocate tag by what category I'm going to split it by. And so then when I do the transaction, it's going to post it for me, but then it's going to send it to an allocations holding tank. It's going to say, hey, you said you wanted to split this transaction. How did you want to split it? And then you'll just come in here, click on it, and you'll choose the cost driver you have set up, and it will split it out for you and do the journal entry for you. So a lot of the time what bigger churches will do is if they're doing a lot of the same splits, they'll wait to do the splits at the end of the week, or let it pile up a little bit if it's at the end of the month, and you can click them all at once if they're all being split by the same cost driver and split them all at once, which obviously can save a ton of time depending on what splits you're doing. So those are some of the automations. Something I want to hop into as well is for if you're ever going to be managing multiple entities. So we have something we call oversight inside of Aplos. Oversight is the ability to manage multiple entities and do books for them, but keep them separate. So this way, if you have separate EIN numbers for a ministry that's part of the church, or church plan, or a different campus, if you want to do roll-up reporting, you can do roll-up reporting if they're on the same chart of accounts. So there's a lot you can do here, but you can segment your permission levels just to be, to that campus. So, per person at campus 2, they have their own account, they have their own EIN number, they can do their own thing, they can click into it and do the books for that campus, and do all their own reporting, and then you can roll it up to the overall campus. So there's a lot you can do for the sovereign churches, or the church plants. If you have a church plant that you're launching out of your campus or the main campus, you have the ability to create an account for them. Church plants get 6 months free with our software, so they can get used to it, get up and running, and if they ever need your help, you can easily hop into their account because you have the oversight account at the main campus. So that's an option. I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then leave a little bit of time for Q&A, and if Cindy wants to add anything on. But I'm going to go ahead and send the questions your way right now. So first one, if Aplos is a good fit, when are you looking to move forward with it as your financial solution? For any of you that might be actually interested in us, if the option's not on there, maybe you don't want to move forward with us, you can just go ahead and click you can either not answer or just click the by January 1st, 2020 option. Give it a little bit more time. Still waiting on a couple answers. Alrighty, gonna go ahead and shut this poll down. And also something else I'm gonna ask. If you are interested, we do outsourced bookkeeping. So just giving you the option to, if you want more information, just go ahead and say yes, or I'd like more information. Most of the time, it's not as common, but most big churches like to handle it in-house. They like having that control in-house. So we completely understand that as well, but we understand, if you're going through a transition and maybe you're going to be losing one of your administrators soon, we're happy to take over the books for, if it's just a few months till you hire someone new to replace it or anything like that. Go ahead and let us know. The nice thing about it is you can take over the books whenever you want to take them back over. go ahead and close this out. And let's hop back into the final slide of the keynote. So, in conclusion, you're going to have to build a strong structure, a good chart of accounts that's going to give you the reporting you need. Even if you're not using Aplos, it's very important. Don't want to make it over complex. Don't want to oversimplify it. Make it make sense for what you need to do and what you're looking to do, because that's going to be the foundation for all the reports you pull. Budgets, extremely important. Create your budgets, stick to them, have multiple eyes on them so you can increase that accountability and transparency, help you make better decisions, and then automate what you can. Your time is, very important. One of the big things we like to think of at Aplos is we try to simplify everything and free up as much time of yours as we can. That way you can spend time focusing on maybe some of the more important stuff at your church, maybe more dedicated to the vision or the mission of, helping church planners or helping people come to God. So automate what you can, save some time, and spend your time doing books if you don't have to. And then also Aplos oversight if there's any sovereign churches that need help doing their own books, or you want to give them an account if it's a church plant, they can get their free 6 months and take advantage of that. And then, Cindy, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just say that we have vetted Aplos. We're careful. We try to be very careful in who we vet as preferred vendors. Aplos is somebody that came to our attention. We have vetted their software. We feel very confident in its ability. We actually like it the best of all the softwares that we've looked at, even over QuickBooks, because of its ease in fund accounting, which is really important for churches in not spending restricted funds on other purposes, and the ease of using the software. We actually have 3 of our districts who are piloting it in a program for this first year. They're testing it out. They've been using the software for 3 months now. They have really liked the software, and we think that it may be the software that we use for other districts going forward in the future because of our success with it. They found it, they're all at different, the bookkeepers or the district administrators are all at different levels in terms of bookkeeping experience, and all of them have reported that they find it easy to use and intuitive. So we really haven't had that much of a ramp up. They've had questions, we've been able to answer those and move on. So I think that would give you confidence if you're concerned about switching. And I know that it's always hard to switch softwares when you're familiar with something and then switching over to something else, but they found the learning curve to be very small. It was very easy to use, very intuitive, so they were very happy with it. So we've been really pleased with the software, which is why we wanted to promote it to our Foursquare churches, because we thought that you guys would also like it. And they are offering a discount because of that preferred relationship to our Foursquare churches so that you guys can take advantage of the software at a discounted rate. So all the reasons why I would highly promote it. And we even use it at the church that I'm at. I feel so strongly about it that I recommended it to the church that I attend, and they've been using it, have been very satisfied with it as well.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah. And of anyone, we have about 5 minutes. If you want to get any questions in that either Cindy or I can help answer, feel free to fire away. If not, we'll close it down. But give you a little bit of time to ask some questions. There should be a questions tab inside of your control panel for the GoToWebinar. Okay, let's see. Are column widths within reports adjustable, fitting things on one page, or even having columns even though names are different lengths and filling blank spaces? So the column widths are not adjustable inside of the reporting. You have the ability to export to Excel if you need to. If you're looking at some of the tag reports, one of the big reasons why we kind of built the tag statement report is so you don't have a report that is, 4 feet wide, but it's not that long. So if you're looking at the tag reports, the tag statements, you have the ability to put them as rows and not columns. If they are columns, you can share direct access to the software with reports. So I don't have to create a user. I can share the reports directly from there. Um, and that can kind of help if you share it through Excel or PDF. But you're not going to be able to adjust the width of the column inside of the actual Applos reports. Any more questions? I'd be curious too if you want to provide feedback on the one question, other things that you struggle with your current accounting software. Um, just so I know for next time, maybe I missed some of that on what you were struggling with. Um, those are just kind of the common ones we hear, but obviously there's always circumstances depending on what software you're in and what you're looking to do. Go ahead and give about a couple more minutes to ask any questions. And everyone can also receive a 15-day free trial. If you need a little more time, let me know. I'd be happy to grant longer access to try out the software. I know it can be harder with a bigger church because there's more data you want to get in there. We have a demo account that has a sandbox in it where everyone has different information they input in there and they're playing with. So if you want to do it with some of the dummy data that's loaded in, we can add you to that as well. We always want you to be comfortable with the software before you make the change to it. So something we really value is keeping our customers happy long term. Something that separates us from a lot of competitors is support's included in the cost of software. You're not going to be billed a monthly charge for support or any maintenance fees or anything like that. We feel like if you trust us with your accounting software, the least we can do is provide free support, and it's something that we think keeps our customers happy for the long term. So if you are on QuickBooks, I know sometimes you might get outsourced to a call center. That's never going to happen with us. Um, our support team's all located in California, and we're happy to help with any questions you might have. Alrighty. Sandra has a question. Does Applos work for payroll tax forms? So we don't run payroll inside of Applos. We run it through, we have a provider that we work with called Gusto. Gusto is a full service payroll that will file all your taxes, help with housing allowances. I know something else that Foursquare and Cindy endorses because it's a great option for um, full service payroll, and it's fully integrated with Applos. So if you run a payroll in Gusto, it maps that information over into Applos, makes it very simple. But if you don't use Gusto, that's fine. You can import in journal entries from other payroll providers. I know there's a couple other common ones out there that you can use if you're comfortable with. But we don't do the actual payroll. We don't have a payroll module inside of Applos. Our solution is Gusto, or if you want to use a different solution, you can import in the journal entry. Alrighty, I think we're going to go ahead and close this out. If you have any more questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I'll probably send all of the attendees a follow-up email just to see if there's anything I can help with. I'm happy to, if you want to look into it further, if you want to pull someone else in to look at it, I'm always happy to kind of ease the concerns of making the switch. So yeah, alrighty. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.